All right, everybody, here we are for Town Hall number 122. Can you believe 122 of these we've got under our belt? Goodness gracious, how time has flown since we've been having so much fun doing these. So welcome to the Credit Union Town Hall, sponsored by our fine folks from CUNA Councils, Illuma, and Typhone. We wanted to go to the next slide. Madison, hey, look. And unfortunately, John cannot make it this time around. We don't know. John could be flying around Saturn right now. Who knows what he's doing? But we're going to be Glenn and I are going to be. What's that?
He's at America Credit Union CEO Council this week, emceeing.
Even
today,
better than flying around
Friday.
Saturn. Okay.
Yeah. It should be a great time.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Thanks for the heads up on that. So anywho, so Glenn and I are gonna be filling in for John today. I think Glenn, you're gonna be doing like most of the heavy lifting today. But I will be here as your support mechanism, sir. So yeah, so there's our introduction. John Best, CEO and co-founder of Best Innovation Group. Me, CU Broadcast. Glenn, give us a quick 411 on. There you are. Look at you, 154 Advisors.
411 on 154. Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know me, I've been in the credit union. Credit unions are near and dear to my heart, going back to my first job at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago when I joined the Great Lakes Credit Union because they were right down the hall from the cafeteria. And it seemed to be a good place to stop in on Fridays and drop off my paycheck back when you had
How convenient. Wow. So that's how it started for you, Glenn, huh?
That's how it started for me. And then it kind of continued from there. 3 years later, when I went back to business school and I discovered that the University of Pennsylvania was starting a students credit union. And I said, hey, that's really interesting. I used to work at the Fed. And they said, you're in. So I wound up kind of helping launch the credit union as well. And I've been in the fintech space. There was a gap in there doing some other stuff, but I've been in the payments and fintech space for the last 25 years. And still, I'm the board of advisors of that students credit union and working at the intersection of credit unions and fintech. And we'll talk in a second about Finovate, which I was just at last week.
Yes. Let's get a little get a recap on that because that just ended as well. So I'm glad that you have your own slide here, Glenn, too, because it's well deserved. So we have that next slide. All right, next slide, Melissa, if you will. All right. So again, we want to special thanks to today's sponsors, CUNA Councils, or America's Credit Union Councils, if they're being referred to, and that is exactly where John is today at the CEO Council conference there. So good on the folks at CUNA Council. They have a council just about for everything. There's lending is coming up, the tech and operation or business shows coming up. They have HR, I believe, a leadership one. Yeah, they have one. There's one for every. It's almost like an app. There's an app for that. There's a council for that. So
and if you've got travel budget left and a desire to get out of town, you can not just with America's credit unions, but with the conference schedule in general. Mike and I, you and I were just talking about this.
We're getting on the plane.
Be on the road between now and Thanksgiving. If you choose.
Yes, yeah, I told my family just that. I will see you at Thanksgiving. Save me a drumstick. So. And some mashed potatoes. So yeah, it's gonna be like that for a lot of us this coming fall. But it's all good. We all get to see each other in person, so that's a blast as well. So all right, let's talk about Illuma as well.
Yeah, let me jump in there because it's nice timing in terms of Finovate, because just last week Illuma won a Best of Show award.
That's right.
Which again, for people who are not familiar, Finovate is a series of demos, 66, as Rick pointed out when I traded notes with him last night. And it's an audience vote. There's no specific criteria. They don't tell you pick the best X. They say, which are your favorites?
Yeah.
It might be the most interesting solution. It might be the best presentation. It might be the biggest revenue potential. Whatever, hits your sweet spot. They usually give the award to about the top 10%. And they tell me that they try not to have somebody like lose by one vote. They look for kind of a natural break point in terms of voting. Illuma got it. Illuma was one of the winners this time, and they got my vote too. And I don't think I was being biased. I honestly think I know them well, and I really have appreciated what they've done. They've won before at Venture Tech. They've been on stage, and I've always thought they were impressive at Finovate, but I saw Milan Borkar there.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm starting to get a complex because we've never actually taken home the hardware here. And then sure enough, at the point when they were actually giving out the awards, he wasn't there. His colleague actually picked it up. But I thought it was extremely well-deserved. I think everybody knows that they work with voice recognition on a passive basis, so they can actually authenticate without somebody having to recite a specific script or something like that in the call center. I thought it was ingenious, and I think maybe that's the reason they won this time. The way they approached it is, rather than give kind of a more elongated demo, they literally, Millen got up there, spoke, showed the screen, said, yes, this guy's good, had the same kind of dashboard that the call center rep would see, saying, proceed, this guy's authenticated.
Yeah.
This was done in like 90 seconds.
It's
and
pretty
like,
slick.
That's what we do. But then, to kind of take it to the next level, he had his colleague pretend to be Millen, said, nope, you're not it. You saw exactly what the opposite was. Then they had a AI voice deepfake of Millen. Sounded like him to me. I would have been totally fooled. Nope, it didn't pass the test.
Wow.
Pretty darn impressive. But anyway, if you don't know about Illuma, you should know about Illuma.
You do now. You do now. Yeah.
Congratulations on the best of show.
Indeed. Yeah. We just had Malind on the show last week, so I haven't produced and posted it yet, but they were on with AmeriQ, talking about how AmeriQ has added their voice verification for their credit union. So that will be a show that's so stay tuned. In other words, stay tuned for that.
You're referring to CU Broadcast on that one. You had them on there.
Yep.
Okay, great.
They're gonna be on CU. Sorry, I should clarify. There's so many shows now. I have no idea. So they'll be on pretty soon. So yeah, and Malin talked about we finally got Finovate Best of Show. So that was.
Oh, you talked to him after the event. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. It was like a day. I know he had just flown back.
Yeah,
because like the day after.
I forget if he presented Monday or Tuesday, but it was that's absolutely hot off the presses as of last Tuesday night. Yep. I just saw Cynthia put in the chat a little bit more about the council events coming up. So
okay.
Take a look at that as well.
There we go. All right, and our last and not least sponsor, the fine folks at Typhone. Obviously, I'll kind of read here. They're the leading provider of digital banking solutions for community financial institutions, credit unions included, across the U.S. They have cloud-native digital banking platform, Infinia, and a suite of digital payment solutions. They are dramatically different, disrupting the market with modern, next-generation technology that empowers banks and credit unions to more effectively and efficiently engage their communities while driving growth and generating new revenue opportunities. That is a long sentence, everybody. That was all one sentence. So kudos to the folks at Typhone. They not only do technology right, that they can write a long sentence as well. And I just saw a LinkedIn post from Josh Tatar that he is, like most of us are going to be, he's going to be on the road for the next 10 weeks as well. And he always traditionally takes a picture of his red Chucks, and they're going to be out and about as well at various conferences. So coming to a conference near you. So yeah, thanks again to the folks at Typhone, Illuma, and CUNA Councils, or America's Credit Unions Councils, for being sponsors of the town hall. So the digital town hall. So which was, again, 122 episodes in. My gosh, time has flown. All right. Anything else we want to cover here, Melissa? Any other slides we need? Oh, today's giveaway. Oh my gosh,
I love that they have a gift card that's shaped like a cassette. I had never seen that before. That is
how old school.
Yeah. They have a lot of creative ones. Yeah.
I like it. Brought to you by the fine folks at William Mills. There they are. There's our friend Scott Mills. Scott, how are you, sir? Good to see you again.
Good to be seen. I also have Amber on the.
So Amber is here too.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hello. Well, thank you very much for doing always for sponsoring today's giveaway, and we'll be doing that at the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes of the show. We'll spin the wheel and see who's going to be who will be winning the Best Buy gift card. So put your names in the chat here if you want to be considered or participate. That would be awesome.
If you are with a credit union, it is for a credit union.
It is for if you are a credit union. Yes. I think one week we had Jeff Bezos try to sneak in there and win. I think
an Amazon card. Awesome.
Yes.
Yep. There was the Amazon card. You're right.
Gosh, that guy. I tell you, that guy. All right. So he is a sneaky one. All right. Shall we mosey to the next slide or just dive right in? Shall we, Glenn? It's up to you, sir.
Why don't you advance? I can't remember if I put one more slide in here or not.
Let's see.
Yeah. Okay. So
this is all you, Glenn.
I'll start by just kind of giving a sense of what we're talking about, and then I'm going to rewind for a second and talk
Tanya's going to
about the Finovate, and then also, if you didn't see, the Fed just lowered interest rates by a half point.
Boy, I was just on a webinar just before this one, and we just got started, and it was about lending, and I said, yeah, I think they're going to be making a decision sometime today. And then right after I said that, I got a news thing that came right across my screen and went, oh my gosh. They just
I figured that would disrupt any banking event conversation going on.
exactly. We had a whole bunch of people on there, and a few people dropped off. I could see people drop off, and then they came back on later. But I think they had to go check out the news for themselves. So there's going to be some activity, I think, in the financial services industry based on that news. So we'll wait and see.
So the primary topic, however, today is the whole notion, and we've talked about this before, a primary financial institution. And part of the whole point is there really is not one firm definition of how you can characterize who the PFI is. And the next question is, how important is it? And is it the same level of importance as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Good question.
Money moves around these days. So I'd like that to be an open conversation for all of us.
I agree.
Why don't we stay on this slide as a thought starter? Anybody, like I said, would love it to be an extremely open-ended conversation with everybody. So get your thoughts together, and we'll jump back to that. And in the meantime, would you say something, Mike? Sorry.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
Because I think it's pretty well known that the younger generations, and Amber, if you want to hop back on as well, kind of representing maybe the younger generations here, they have. I've heard or I've read studies that they have like 6 or 7 different accounts at various financial institutions, whereas traditionally back in the day, you would have maybe 1, maybe 2, something like that. So I wanted to get your take on that. And Amber, I would love to get Amber's take on that as well, since she's kind of the representative of the younger generations here. But I don't know, maybe she dropped off, Scott. Did she?
I see her. She may have a young one screaming in the background.
No worries then. No worries. But yeah, that's one thing that I heard.
Maybe we can get her young one to talk about it. Generation Double Z or whatever.
Probably has a Discover card, right, Glenn?
I get so many Discover mailings for all 3 of my daughters, none of whom live here anymore. Still, hey, students can get cards too. But anyway.
Goodness gracious. I know. I just thought I wanted to throw that out there because that seems to be the trend right now. And then how to manage that would just be, makes my head want to spin off my shoulders. So I don't know. So I'm not sure if there is a primary anymore.
And I saw Rick just put something in the chat. So again, start gathering your thoughts, and let's have an open-ended conversation on that in just a couple minutes. Thought I would mention, we already talked about Illuma winning Best of Show. There were 8 Best of Show winners. Oh, and by the way, I thought Finovate this year was particularly engaging. There was the audience, it was a good 1,300 people.
Please share.
And I thought that, and I don't know this officially to be the case, it felt like we've kind of hit a tipping point where credit unions probably outrepresented community banks. And not only in the audience, I think that's great news. I know the top 20 largest banks were there, but when you start talking about smaller institutions, it may just be because that's who my radar's up for. But I wound up sitting next to and having conversations with tons and tons of credit unions. There was a special breakout session on the 3rd day called the Credit Union Spotlight, which was
that's a new thing they're doing.
Sponsored by the Circle Fund.
Yep.
And they actually, it was a little bit of a round robin kind of speed dating thing for, I think there were 5 companies that weren't even on the Finovate stage at an earlier stage, kind of talking about their solutions with credit cards. So, and I just continued, I've seen this trend for the last couple of years, but I saw it even more so this time around, the number of presenters on stage that seem to be primarily targeting their comments toward credit unions. In the past, it was like, your bank can do this or your credit union. Really? Many of them these days seem to be saying, so when we work with your credit union or bank, I'm not saying they forgot about the banks, but they led with the credit union. It really felt like the tide has turned in terms of the way a lot of these young companies are seeing opportunities in the marketplace, the greatest need, the greatest potential prospects for them where they can see a partnership. So that was extremely encouraging to me. I'll just mention really quickly, there were 8 Best of Show winners. I don't know if you've done this already, Melissa, but if anybody wants to take a look, I posted a podcast yesterday. That was when Rick and I were just talking about. Interviewed 2 of the companies already, and the part 2 will be posted next week with a couple more interviews of people that I really liked. But of the companies that won the Best of Show, 4 that I'll bother mentioning right here, Illuma being one of them we already talked about. Yep. There was a very young company. This is one of the other interviews that I had in this week's episode called CardLift. The word card and lift in one word.
Okay.
Yes. And it's a serial entrepreneur. He started a couple other companies. They've all been browser extensions This one basically looks to make your card the top of wallet, and it goes out and it looks for where he's selling it through card issuers. And the idea is it basically goes through your browser and sees where you have recurring payments. It sees where you have card credentials already stored. And then it serves up offers and saying, wouldn't you rather have this card in its place and move it to the top of the wallet? Pretty cool.
How could a credit union use that?
Anybody who's issuing cards, a credit
Okay.
union, you want to figure out how to make sure that your card is used more often, particularly on the set it and forget it recurring payments.
Yeah.
I think, and part of the key is if you have somebody who has a new credit card, and presumably an individual is going to make an informed decision of which card they choose to use at any given time.
Yeah.
But over time, they kind of forget about them and they just kind of keep ticking away. So
Yeah.
if as a credit union, you're making a compelling offer, whether it's because you're charging a lower interest rate on your card, whether you're giving them additional loyalty points or something like that, if you can say, hey, wouldn't you rather be using our card? And they say yes, all of a sudden you've got additional interchange.
Gotcha. I like that.
I thought that was in fact, I guess I can say this. I'm not sure I'm giving anything away. I was sitting next to Nick Evans from Circle Fund.
Yeah.
And that was the one where he looked at me and kind of went, whoa. I mean, right, like literally in real time as the presentation ended. So, I mean, that definitely caught his attention too. And obviously some other folks, because, they don't tell you what the rank order of the voting was, but it was clearly one of the winners.
Well, if Nick went wow, would we be seeing them at Venture Tech possibly?
Probably too late for this cycle.
Next time.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. They already, from what I recall, have some pretty kind of high-profile investors. Not a ton of money, but I forget if it was Y Combinator. Maybe I was one of those prior companies.
Yeah, it has it there on their website. I'm on their website right now. Y
Oh,
Combinator.
you're so fast at that.
Clicked on the link that Melissa put in there. She's the fast one.
Two others that I thought were interesting. One I saw on stage. I can't remember if I saw it at Venture Tech or maybe at a past Finovate called Credit Mountain. And again,
Credit Mountain, yeah.
It's not one that I voted for, but I think it's a really neat idea. And then the idea is sometimes you're going to decline somebody for credit for something, and they're going to leave with a bad taste in their mouths. And the idea here is to figure out how to have that person or individual prospect feel, maybe a member already, maybe not a member, feel as good about you as possible in what would otherwise be a bad situation. So they figure out ways to continue engagement, make other alternative offers, things along those lines to make the best out of what would potentially be a touchier situation. Sounds like a pretty darn interesting idea to me. I don't know enough about how they do it, but if you can do it, that sounds pretty valuable.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I'll mention, and this one I thought was really cool, but it really surprised me that it won Best of Show, which really is kind of telling about kind of the conventional wisdom versus the way people in these audiences are really thinking about things. It's a company called Bankography, based in Birmingham, if I'm not mistaken.
Bankography?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a very robust analytic tool to look at branch locations. It looks at what the competition looks like. It looks like what the demographics are like. If you're considering mergers, what kind of an overlap in footprint there might be. This guy was an absolute machine. He over the course, he used his 7 minutes better than anybody I've ever seen. Sounded kind of like a really amped up 2 a.m. kind of infomercial guy, but he got it all out there. And I thought it was okay. And I couldn't remember if it was bank with a C or with a K. But Scott just put it in the chat. Yeah. Bankography with a C.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
And they, I definitely thought, okay, this is valuable information. How many people are still thinking about their branches that much? Obviously, the answer is plenty of people are thinking about their branches that much. And I think they should be, because I still think branches are an important part of the overall equation. So I was.
And while I didn't see the demo, I think the basic premise is what's the potential value of the accounts that could be served by that branch or this combination of branches, right, Glenn?
Exactly. And he basically kind of did it in a multitude of different kind of scenarios. Like I say, might be a merger and acquisition. It might be opening a new branch. It might be saying, okay, is this branch under or overperforming compared to what the demographics look like? He was just churning through all this stuff over the course of 6.5 minutes. And it was pretty darn impressive. So anyway, there you go, Micah. That's why you know Credit Mountain.
I forgot that I interviewed them at CU FinHealth this past year, this past spring. Yeah.
So you may want to track down Bankography too and do one with that.
I'll get on that.
Let's get into the main topic. But I'll be curious to hear what people are thinking also about I was frankly a little bit surprised that they went with 50 basis points instead of 25. The market doesn't seem, at least the stock market has not seemed to have reacted intensely at this point. You know,
They
there's
were
always
pleasantly surprised because I think if they did 25 there, I don't think that would have made a dent. I think
they always talk about, you know, buy on the rumor, sell on the news. And I think if it was 25, the market probably would have gone down. I did notice, and I would have it in front of me right now if anybody else wants to look, it was up like in the 0.5 percentage point level when I looked before the call started, but it seemed like it had spiked up and was starting to trail back again. So maybe it was just kind of, you know,
it'll spike on the news and then settle out.
We've kind of baked it in, I think, might be what's going on. Anyway, if we go to the next slide, is Lou really on? I know Lou
is here.
Thanks to Lou for providing this. He did a little bit of secret shopping on his own to try to see what different FIs, how they approach the question of how do they define a primary financial institution relationship. And as I say, there is no one set definition. And I can't decide if there should be or if it doesn't really matter, because the one thing that's difficult without having a set definition is it's tough to get an apples to apples comparison. It's tough to get industry-wide data. On the other hand, if you want to think about how your institution what you think is most important, and then, you know, move the meter on that metric, then you want to have your own definition too. So, you know, here you can read a few of them here. I mean, a member with a savings and a checking account along with direct deposit, you know, and, you know, sometimes they don't have loans. I agree. I personally don't think that a PFI relationship needs to have a loan because, as they say, not everybody needs a loan. And then you do see, you know, the second one, 4 or more products, depending on how you define products. That again seems a little bit heavy to me. My personal thought has always been, you know, you want to have in an ideal world, you want to have the transaction account. And the best way to have the transaction account is to have money coming in. And the best way to have money coming in is through direct deposit. So if I had to look personally for a definition, I would say, who has your direct deposit? Now, even that's not as clean as it used to be, because I'd say 20 years ago, you know, the vast majority of people got a single paycheck. Right. You know, now with the gig economy and different types of fractional work, you know, you might have 5 different inflows and it might not all be going to the same place. So, you know, I'm not sure how you would find out if you're getting the lion's share of that, but that might be one other way of thinking about it. Anybody else out there either have a different definition or want to weigh in on one of these, or how you think about it? Do you agree that direct deposit becomes one of the more important ones? Don't all speak at once.
Anyone?
Can I throw out some food for thought?
Go ahead, Lou.
All right. So yeah, I put these together, 3 different credit unions. Didn't want to name the credit unions, but one thing that struck me is why? Why do we need a PFI definition at all? It's typically to be able to segment the membership. Maybe you want to reward your best members, say with better rates, lower loan rates, higher CD rates, whatever, or to use as a prediction for attrition, or to offer a new product, additional products, whatever. No matter what you're doing, some sort of segmentation, PFI is just too simplistic. It's too one-dimensional. You're going to have to dig into the data and use analytics to accomplish segmentation for a specific purpose. If you have loans, like you just said, Glenn, as part of your definition of PFI, and so when I close my loan, then I'm no longer a PFI, but that's not a good indicator that I am going to attrite. So like you need data analytics to go in and look at what my activity is, what has increased, what has dropped. I do have a problem with the did I not include it here? The 10, is it covered up? The 10 debit transactions.
I remember that.
Yeah, there it is. Sorry, it's buried underneath the panel here. I don't use my debit card 10 times a month.
You don't or do?
I do not.
Oh, wow.
But
I would think that if you counted, you know, basically any debits, ACH and or card transactions, I mean, it feels like, you know, you want that, you know, your greatest level of engagement would be, you go to the grocery store. Well, maybe not, because if, like you say, I know you're a rewards junkie, so you're probably using your credit card almost any place you can.
I'm debit. I use debit at least 10 times a month.
Me too. Me too.
So, yeah.
So I think it's a very interesting point. One of the side topics that come to my mind is, do we make money, even as a not-for-profit? How do you generate your member surplus and pay your bills? Do you make that money differently today than you did 20 years ago? So, and for that reason, does the definition of a primary institution change too?
Credit union in example 3 brought that up basically by saying your members that you may consider PFIs are not necessarily your most profitable members. Your most profitable members carry large balances on their credit cards. They or heavy transactors, so building interchange, or have sizable loans out, hopefully at higher rates. So the PFI is not necessarily an indicator of profitability.
And that's an interesting point too, because then the question becomes, what is it that you're looking to incent, to encourage people to do, or to even measure? Because yes, if you have a very high balance credit card, and that's the one thing that that somebody really uses you for, besides for having some kind of very stable and dormant balances, that's great for now. And then if somebody comes in with a better offer to that person and they pull it overnight, it's almost the equivalent of like a hot money deposit, I would think. Would you agree with that, Lou, or am I overstating the fact?
I agree with you. I'm also looking at Rick just put a comment in the chat. Shouldn't the goal be capturing the lifetime value of a member, young and old? So now we get into longevity of membership. And one of my credit union accounts, I can be proud to say, member since 93, I think it is, 95. Something like that. Okay, nice. I don't get any special treat or reward for being a member of that credit union that long. But so yeah, if PFI is being used to define the value to the credit union of that member, you still need something deeper than just basically 2 or 3 or 4 check boxes like you see on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last example, if you've got 50% of your membership that, again, it's kind of being blocked on my screen as well, but does that say that 50% of their members basically treat it as the PFI, or just says 50%?
It says
ACH deposit.
It says 50% of our membership that has an active ACH deposit with us.
From my standpoint, I mean, I would be pretty impressed by that. That strikes me, and I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on the call. I would think that's a pretty high percentage, unless I'm off base.
If the credit unions have such, in some cases, super high numbers of indirect auto loan members and that's their only product, those members don't have a direct ACH coming in. I don't know, unless they're counting those auto payments as a direct ACH. No, this is an ACH deposit.
Yeah,
ACH going into a deposit account.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's, this is kind of one of my own little kind of personal pet peeves is, when we see the number, what is it typically talked about? 130 million credit union members, 140, I forgot the number typically is quoted as. I just always feel a need to call BS on that, because I just, like you say, the number of those that are really indirect auto loans that are purely relationships of convenience, and that person probably does not think of themselves as a member and has no real interaction other than a loan that at some point is going to just kind of be retired out of its natural course of business. Is it profitable? Yeah, I'm not suggesting you get rid of it, but I'd say let's not kid ourselves about exactly how well penetrated we are. And same kind of point, if you think about it, and maybe, again, it'd be interesting to see if there's a correlation or not with primary financial institution.
I think any financial institution could say that. So
say which?
What if they just have one thing going on at their credit union, okay, are they a true member or not? Or at a bank, are they a true customer if they just have one thing going there? So I think anybody's going to use those numbers to make themselves look better.
I mean, I would say that if you have, and again, the difference with a credit union, the credit union difference is that you have to have a membership in order to take on other loans and things like that. That may be just a formality and a paper entry says, hey, we're putting $5 in an account for you.
Yep.
If that that just sits there and does nothing, then that's, okay, that's fine. But to me, it's the folks who really use your institution as the primary account.
Who are active.
And I'd like to think that gives you first shot at additional business when the need, that member's need arises. I see Gary mentioning Radin, which I know is a good name for this stuff. The key is householding for profitability. And you say householding in terms of mortgage, or you're talking just in terms of being a home owner? Gary, what are you saying there?
It's the number of members that live in the household.
Oh,
Okay.
But they won't share their algorithm that determines householding or what makes a product profitable or giving you the mix. They sell that, we can give you a list of the next best product that will make that member more profitable. But they won't share how they're getting that, how they're able to give you that information. So how can you trust it if they won't tell you? And the reason they don't tell you is if they tell you, you could do it yourself and you wouldn't need it.
Right. That's the secret sauce. Exactly.
Right.
See, so I always go back and forth on that. Like I say, I'm not opposed to indirect auto, and I'm hearing that, that number is actually coming down now. But on the other hand, I think we need to basically think of them almost as like Class A and Class B shares. When you think about, the way something, I'm not saying they should have less of a vote. And and I bet you also when you come to any kind of bylaws and elections and things like that, if anybody actually took a look, I would assume that they probably have the lowest turnout in terms of actual, registering their votes at any kind of shareholder meetings.
Let me try to get philosophical here, and it's thinking, reading into the first credit union example. PFI is defining a relationship, the member relationship to the credit union. Maybe it's not the credit union who gets to determine who is in that relationship, but it's the member who determines who they consider their PFI. And like this one, the first one, they claim a loan is one of the check boxes in order to consider that member as seeing their credit union as their PFI. But they also do surveys, which is good. Every credit union should be doing surveys. And there are members who consider that credit union their PFI and have no loans. So really, it's not the credit union to define, here's our definition of PFI, and here's the members who fit in that category. It's really up to the member to define who their PFI is.
That's an interesting, I guess the only problem with that is, how do you get at all the members? Obviously, you can take a smaller survey, but the level to which members have actually, one thing is behavior, and the other is if they've actually thought through the behavior and put words attached to it. I would think that the typical member, consumer, whoever's out there, even if they hadn't thought about it that way, would probably point to the place where they have their active. At this point, I'd probably say debit card, because that's probably the way they're thinking about it. The whatever the DDA is, that's the primary transaction point through which most of their ins and outs are going. I would guess that's probably what they would point to. Maybe not, but what does everybody else think? Would that typically be where you would expect your where you'd identify your primary relationship being, or would it be where you had your mortgage?
For me, it just depends on how much activity that I'm doing. So it doesn't matter where I have my mortgage or my auto loan or something, where I do the most activity, because I have 3 or 4 different financial institutions that I work with. So, but it's, which one, my credit union, I can honestly say that my credit union is probably where I'm most active. So I would consider that one my PFI, but I have, A, B, C, D, that type of stuff. Have 1A, 1B type of thing. So that's kind of my situation.
Well, you talked about using debit cards a lot, Mike. I'm curious,
Yes.
Do you carry more than one debit card, or do all your debit transactions run out? You do.
I have 2 debit cards. Yeah.
And how do you decide which one to use?
My credit union one is tops, and my other one's just a backup.
So it's like 80-20, 90-10. You're using
80-20 probably. Yeah.
And it's, if I'm hearing it correctly, that means you probably think of your credit union as your primary. And I'm guessing that's also where you deposit. I don't know if you typically get individual payments or if you get
all my deposits. Yeah.
And they go there. So again, it's the warehouse might not be the right word, but yeah, it's the way station through which all this stuff comes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, Lou, you're on the out, and I don't know how, I'm just picking on you two because I know you the best here, the people I can see on the call. I know you run everything through credit card, right? I mean, you're a rewards hound.
Yes. But I think I have 11 credit cards when I last counted. I would say six of them are that I mean are very active based on one of them is quarterly 5% category. One of them is every month based on what you spent most of that month is 3%. One's a 2% for everything. Apple Card is when I can tap my phone, especially at Walgreens. That's a 3%. So I'm constantly going through those. I don't know where you're going with the checking account. Just put a pin in that for a second. I have 3 financial institutions that I have checking accounts with, which means kind of by definition, there's one credit union where my paycheck goes into, but the 2 of them are 2 checking accounts at 2 different credit unions. So theoretically, they're both counting me as a member. And then I obviously have to move money around in order to fund the other 2 checking accounts in order to use them. And I do. They're all actively used. The one where my paycheck goes into is who I would consider my primary financial institution. But obviously, I'm moving money also to pay the large banks that I have credit cards from.
And the other half of that question, then, if you've got 11 credit cards, or I don't know how many of them typically have a balance in any given month, do you pay them all out of the same DDA, or how do you?
Good question.
Like you say, you get your paycheck direct deposited into one account. Again, does that become your way station, and then that's the dispersion point through which you pay all the bills?
Yeah, I had to think about that, but yes, the credit union account that gets my paycheck is where I pay all of those credit cards from.
I just saw, I think it was Cynthia. I love the fact that we got such a good, and we capture the thread here on the in the chat, right? We'll have this afterwards. Melissa or Madison, I'll make sure we don't lose these.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Cynthia, you make the comment, I've heard institutions using where the consumer has their bill pay as the PFI. I would agree with that. Now, I'm hearing, at least, I still am a big user of banking bill pay, but I'm hearing that that's become less and less common. But I would agree that that would be the logical place. I would think, again, it probably has a pretty heavy overlap with where you get your direct deposit. So you wind up with one and the same.
Well, that goes to Gary's point.
And probably where you have your debit card.
Yep.
I'm just getting to Gary's point.
That good, yeah. That's what he just.
Yes, if you, and it's interesting because if you stop direct deposit, then does it mean that same person just moved it to another institution? Does it mean that person, is out of work? Does it mean that they suddenly have a different working relationship?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
They
know.
just retired?
Yeah, these days pretty much it's almost a sure thing that your Social Security winds up being direct deposited too, right? They push that probably even harder than employers push the direct deposit of the paycheck.
So to Gary's good comment, stopping direct deposit may indicate they're leaving the credit union. How about is a potential indicator of attrition, but it's not a given that the member is going to attrite at that point. However, he combined a decrease in transactions combined with stopping direct deposit is a stronger indication. But again, if the person lost their job, they're not going to go out dining, they're canceling their travel plans, and they don't have a direct deposit until a new job is found.
Does anybody know? It seems like the ratio of acceptance of direct deposit in terms of consumers that opt to do it has pretty much kind of hit a plateau at a pretty high level. I'm wondering at this point, I mean, it may have even dropped off a little bit, but I'm wondering, I don't think people have opted out as much as they've probably changed their working relationships where they may not be getting, that type of a reimbursement the same way. Do you all follow that individually and seeing what percentage of your members are actually making a direct deposit into their accounts? Because that would seem to be a pretty interesting metric to have.
I'd agree.
Go ahead.
I was just saying I'd agree with that, but how hard or easy is it for credit unions to pull that together?
That's an interesting, I mean, I would think that a payroll incoming ACH credit would be, you probably might have to make some assumptions, but I mean, if it comes in on a relatively periodic basis and it comes in at a relatively even level, I mean, you can kind of back out the ones that are kind of clearly, dividend deposits. I'm trying to think of the other reasons I get direct deposits into my account. It's a couple of, dividend checks that come in, things like that, little small things that, are rounding error. But it's, and again, I got out of that business where I stopped getting a period. I take that. Yeah, nobody sends me one. I'll take it back again. I get one that comes in automatically by direct deposit, just a kind of a retainer type thing. But I got out of that business about 10 years ago.
On a related note, if you saw that somebody has stopped a direct deposit, is it appropriate or inappropriate to reach out and touch base with that member?
Say completely appropriate.
I agree. Yeah.
Right. If it's so, what are the reasons why direct deposit stopped? So if they lost their job, obviously do some research for us. If they lost their job and they have an auto loan, can we offer you a skip-a-pay? Can we redo your auto loan? If they have a mortgage, then can we help you with your mortgage in some way? If and other services the credit union could do while they're looking for a new job. If they've stopped direct deposit because they're taking up Chase with an offer, I got this offer. $300 if you open up, I'm sure if I get this right, $300 if you open up a checking account and move your direct deposit to that, $200 if you open up a new savings account with, it was some large sum of money, like $15,000, and keep it open for 3 months. A total of $800 bonus if you do both of those. That's pretty, I mean, you can do the math. That's about, you don't get any interest on that 15K or whatever, but I did the rough calculation of the APY before tax came out to about 3.5% APY. So that's,
I would have thought it was more than that. Wow.
Because you have to carry the balance. Oh, and you also have the balance in your checking account, which is also no interest.
Yeah.
So now the conversation looks very different in that case. Hey, can we send you a reminder at the end of 3 months, and we'll even help you move your direct deposit back and move those funds back to us. Third option, and I hate to say it, but being on a credit union board, we look at member attrition, and top reason for closing accounts is account is in arrears, and after some point we close the account. Second is members are getting old and they're dying, and it's sad, but that's the second largest reason for closing, at least the credit union that I'm on a board of. Closing credit union accounts. Obviously, that is now a very different conversation depending on who you have on the phone. Earlier comments about householding. Hopefully, there was householding on that the remaining person can still holds that PF5 relationship. So yes, I agree. It is absolutely no. It's imperative that you reach out when you see something like that, because you're a community financial institution who cares about your members. And you exist as a credit union solely for the benefit of your members.
I agree, but to Scott's point, I think it does require some kind of really nice bedside manner, kid glove, whatever you want to call the cliche, because it can come off kind of like, hey, we looked at your account and you're not doing this anymore. What's up? I think as long as it's done in a very constructive fashion. And I gave them feedback on it. I got some email. I downloaded a white paper from some company that I can't remember the name of, and I wouldn't mention them if I could. About 4 or 5 days later, I got an email from them with a subject line, "We saw you looking."
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't make me feel good. It really doesn't make me want to do business with you. It makes it sound like you're threatening me in some way.
The art of subtlety, I guess, is appreciated here. Allude to your point about and I believe Rick referenced in the chat about maturing members. I may have mentioned this before, but I talked to a credit union who was looking to automate their roughly 15 to 17 steps required for when a member dies. And they saw that as an opportunity to really use technology and I think they were using bots to help them with this, that it was just a very intensive process to figure out, what to do at that point and how many people had to touch it. The other thing is I met a fintech, and I won't mention their name because I can't remember it, that is early stage in Birmingham that is helping or seeking to help financial institutions with that transfer so that the money stays at the institution.
That I think is critical, exactly. And I don't think that this piece about members getting, clearly we have an issue with aging members, but I don't know that the part about them passing away is a unique problem to credit unions. I'm on the mailing list for the Community Bankers Association of Georgia, and I always get when they're doing webinars.
Oh,
When a depositor dies is the title, and I swear I see that webinar come up more often than anything else that they do. So clearly that's an issue that's throughout the organization. But I would also suggest that it's not just a matter of closing, because closing the account takes action. Draining the account and stopping using it is probably, and you could argue to some extent that if someone just kind of lets it be and it's sitting there at 6 figures, then that might be a nice source of kind of cheap funds. But it's probably also a sign that at some point you're going to have a day of reckoning on it too.
Trish brings up a great point about, she said, my kids got some funds from passing grandparents and put it in Robinhood outside the credit union space. Okay, so here we go with the younger generations moving their money to different places and outside the credit union space. And I'm not saying just the younger generations are guilty of it. I think we're all guilty of it. Any generation is. But that's a really interesting point, because my brother-in-law has an account at Robinhood, and he keeps a fixed amount of money in there because he earns 5% interest on the money that he keeps in there that he doesn't invest on Robinhood. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. I just found that out, this past year when I went to visit them. So there's all these, shiny red ball syndrome stuff out there. Like, ooh, there's lots of distractions out there. Let's put it that way.
That was another one of the Best of Show winners. I'll just mention now then too, called, I don't know if it was pronounced Eco or Echo, EKO. And it was a pretty early stage company, and they mentioned credit. In fact, they had an account. I noticed when they put their demo up, it was I forget what the name of the credit union and the logo was at the top. And I thought it might've been just an invented one for the purposes of the demo. And they said, nope, that is a real credit union that we're working with. And their mission, for exactly the reasons you mentioned, Mike, is to actually provide a conduit through which people, especially younger generations, can do their investing through the credit union channel.
Perfect.
I don't know enough about it, but I mean,
yeah.
We can find the link and pass it on, but it's EKO.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman that grew up in the Netherlands. He had an accent, but he was a very compelling speaker. And I think that might have been part of the reason. So whether it was his presentation or whether it was the compelling product, but he won Best of Show as well.
Yeah.
Trish, I'm curious about what you're saying too. You have had success, because I agree. I think that any kind of an incentive on direct deposit is wonderful. And what have you been doing, and how big of a bump have you seen? Are you able to say? Or do we lose Trish?
I hope not.
Because I love that idea.
Oh, look at yes.
So yeah, that I agree. I think that would be, and I've never been in that boat. I was just looking for numbers. Okay, I've never been in the boat of having that be my responsibility. But if I were somebody responsible for the deposit side, other than maybe corporate deposits and getting big chunks at once, I would be all over the idea of doing everything I could to really cement that relationship with a direct deposit. Gary says, yeah, where are they spending their money? And that's a good point in terms of whether it's loans. Yeah, Trish, if you could unmute and just share whatever you can. I'd love to hear what you're seeing.
Yeah, divulge.
Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes.
I've got all these screens here. So we have been doing a direct deposit promotion the entire year. So the aggregate, year-to-date aggregate direct deposit is over 19 million. Average direct deposit amount, oops, just changed my screen. $685. Total checking accounts opened over 10,000. Checking accounts open compared to baseline. Okay, that's a different number. And then Average number of days until direct deposit is received, 41.76. So it's working, and the incentive is not even that big. So it's just really a focus of driving deposits.
And when you say average of 41 days from the time the account is open until the time they actually deposit the money in your institution, is that what you're saying?
Until it's switched, right? Until the direct deposit actually comes in. Which
That's
is a long
interesting, 'cause
time, isn't it? It's a long time.
Well, yeah, I would have thought it would be almost binary. Like if you didn't get it done in the first couple of weeks, it just wasn't going to happen. I wonder if you're doing a really good job with follow-up. One of those average versus median kind of things. I wonder, I would have thought that the majority of them would have come in. Well, I guess, yeah, this is another one of those things where, we don't have the old fashioned field of membership being your employer where, part of your onboarding when you're signing up for your, your paycheck and everything, it's an automatic check the box, as you're opening up the account. So it's a little bit more work. And then, to what extent there's, again, a valet or something like that provides an easy switchover. Like you're seeing now the Allstate commercials. Hey, we'll do all the switching for you. Just change over us. And, if there's a solution to make that happen, I know that's been one of those holy grails for some time. If you can unhook all the bill pay and bring it over to another account, and one of those things that open banking might help us with.
Indeed. I think we're going to have to wrap it up here.
I was going to say, I know we got the
giveaway
award, but hopefully people found this interesting and worthwhile. And I think, again, it's food for thought. I don't think we ever intended to be able to solve everything right here. But Madison, are you populating the wheel while we're talking?
Yeah, put your names in there if you want to get to. But I really like Lou's point about it's the member who determines the PFI rather than the credit union. So yeah, so we all bounce around, I'm sure. So I thought it was a good take. Good take. So all right, Veronica's in there. We got there's the wheel. Do we have any more folks we want to throw in there, or is this it? Are we set now?
Did we have a few? I thought we had a few more or much earlier in the thread, no?
Yeah, earlier we just had 5 people. Looks like we've got two more throwing in their names right now. So
I don't see
add them
Jeff.
in.
I see 5 right now. So yeah, we
Okay.
probably got a couple more. 6.
We got Chris.
Up to
All
7.
right.
Anybody
Last
see
call.
anybody name missing?
Yep, and I've got you on here, Trish, as well, right here.
Ah,
We ready to
Alrighty.
spin?
Whenever you're ready, Scott, it looks like we are. Hey, let's turn on the sound. So we've got our little.
Yeah. We paid extra to have sound.
Add a bot to your Discord server. Wow.
All right.
ready?
Looks like we're ready. Nobody else is putting it in. All right, here we go.
Again, this is a pretty good payoff.
who is it? Who is it?
All right, looks like it's gonna be
Yeah.
Cynthia
Yeah.
Ryan.
All right.
Congratulations. Oh, I like the applause.
And it's a gift card. It's not direct deposit, right?
Exactly.
Good point, Glenn. Good point.
But it could be used to open up a new account, right?
Oh, indeed, indeed. Well, congrats, Cynthia. Well done. And thanks for everyone participating today. And Glenn, thanks for driving the bus today. You crushed it, sir. Well done.
I love this topic. Hopefully it came across and I'm pretty passionate about it. And it's something I'm fascinated by. So anybody who wants to continue the conversation, please drop me a note.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's something that needs to be talked about and how credit unions can do what they need to do to become that primary financial institution, just like Trish is doing with their direct deposit. So it sounds like there's definitely success out there for sure. So, and then Scott, thanks again for supporting and sponsoring the wheel of whatever. I don't even know what it's called. I forgot. Apologies. But yeah, so the prize wheel, if you will. Lou, hey man, thanks for always participating as well. You and your 11 credit cards. Be careful with that. I couldn't.
He's about the one person I'd hear 11 credit cards and not get nervous.
And I'm not nervous with Lou. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it. And we will see you in a week or a couple of weeks or whenever. It's fall conference season, so who knows? But stay tuned. We'll be back. All right,
Thanks a
guys.
lot.
Thanks again. Thanks, Glenn. That was awesome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Madison.